What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Justin Godsey TV. I am your host, Justin Godsey. I really do appreciate you guys checking out tonight's video. Tonight, guys, we're here talking a little bit of baseball. Baseball resumed after the MLB All-Star break, which was just highlighted with Yoenis Cespedes in the home run derby and Derek Jeter in his final All-Star game. You know, that was a really emotional week for the MLB. Overall, very good weekend. I was really impressed with the All-Star game. Very entertaining. The home run derby could have been a little bit better. The Futures game was awesome. I do enjoy watching the celebrity game. I would give this, celebrity week maybe a 4 out of 5 stars, but that home run derby will keep it away from having a straight 5 out of 5 with the seal approval of going back and watching it, nonstop if you're a baseball fan. So now that the All-Star weekend is over, what's the next thing for baseball? The MLB playoffs, we're just, a few months out. No. We got the MLB trade deadline. A lot of teams are out there, trading away their pieces, releasing their players, and that's what we're here talking about. Well, I wouldn't want to say that, releasing the players, but today, guys, we're here talking about a struggling second baseman in the league, the Atlanta Braves. The Atlanta Braves has cut ties with Dan Uggla, a piece who they have acquired from the Florida Marlins back in 2010. Now, the Atlanta Braves are a very great team. They're just right there. It's a very tight division, along with the Marlins, along with the Phillies, this team, and also, with the Washington Nationals. That division is just very stacked top to bottom, so it's a very hard competition there. And the Atlanta Braves are just right in there. But one player has just not been contributing, and that's Dan Uggla. Dan Uggla, last year we saw some okay numbers from him. I thought, his average was a little bit too low. His home run totals were fantastic at 22 last year, 55 RBIs, batting 179. This year, it's completely just downward spiral from him. He's batting 162. He has a total of 2 home runs and 10 RBIs. And this has just not been the Dan Uggla we used to be seeing. We used to see Dan Uggla, when you look at his bat in the past few seasons with the Atlanta Braves, you see him, being on MLB Network with these defensive plays, this incredible defensive plays. You also see him, hitting those bombs on a regular basis. But now you don't see Dan Uggla really contributing a whole lot. It was just a couple of days ago where he was actually suspended for a game due to tardiness to the team. And you know what? This has just been the final straw. They offered him, the release waivers. He has just been released by the team. Tyler Pastanicki, I'm a huge fan of him. He's the future of the squad at second base. He's a great option, a great defensive second baseman. He's going to be taking over Dan Uggla over at second base for the rest of the year, I would presume. Romero Pena is another option there. So, what's next for Dan Uggla? That's the big question. What is next for Dan Uggla? He's 34 years old. He's a veteran of baseball. He's been in the MLB since 2001, since being drafted. And it's just, right now, it's very hard to really go out there and, look for a starting role for Dan Uggla. You can look at, him likely joining a team and being a part of their bench, because any team, Dan Uggla, I guarantee it's going to take at least 2 to 3 days until we see Dan Uggla sign with the team, because he's going to be a defensive bench piece, a guy he can hit for power. But you know what, the best years of his baseball ability, going out there hitting 30 home runs a year, that's completely behind him. He's going to go out there and start averaging you maybe at best 20 home runs a year. I don't expect him to hit above 25. On a good year, you can see him hit 24. But you know what, with the recent struggles that he has, it's very optimistic right now that you can go out there and say, oh, at 34 years old, I'm expecting Dan Uggla to be back in the playoff race. That's just absurd to say. I do respect what Dan Uggla, has done to Major League Baseball. A very, he's one of very few second basemen. He's right there with Chase Utley, Robinson Cano, for, power bat second basemen, players that can go out there and smack up to 30 home runs a year, or 27 or 28 or whatever the case may be, upper 20s to, low 30 home run years. That's what Dan Uggla can really bring to the plate back in the day. But, he's just drastically fell off the map. And, like I said, right now it's hard for him to land a starting second base role, because when you look at a majority of teams in baseball besides the Cubs, their second base role is really, already summed up. So I can see him going on to a team that really needs a bench piece. When it comes to a team, I would have to go with the San Francisco Giants. Being a big fan of the Giants, they're my favorite team to watch in baseball. I've been watching them since I was about 2 years old. When you look at the current stature in the Giants, when it comes to their bench piece, they don't have that substantial hitter. You know, they got Gregor Blanco, they have Juan Perez, so they have pretty much 2 outfielders on their bench, but they don't have that power bat. And Dan Uggla will make such a great future to this team as, you know, Marco Scutaro. I think he's just much older than, you know, Dan Uggla, maybe a year or so. So when you really look at it, Dan Uggla can go to the Giants to contribute to a big part. You know, he can play defense, he can bring in the runs, he can hit for power. That's something that the Giants need. There's just right on the cusp of taking over the #1 role or leading the division. It's just a quick, tight race right now with the Dodgers and the Giants. I've said it since day one. It's going to come down to the wire. It's going to come down to the final week in baseball and who's going to want it more, the Giants or the Dodgers for that first place in the National League West. And you know what? I think when it comes down to it, the Giants, you're going to have to pull out all the stops. You know, they're going out there and saying, you know, okay, teams, we're willing to trade, you know, pieces away to get our team up to, you know, the caliber of a playoff team. And, you know, Kyle Crick could be available. Just a handful of guys are just available. The Giants said they're willing to open up their farm system and work with, you know, legitimate players. And when you know what, you know, Dan Uggla, he can play a legitimate role. You know, I would be surprised if the Giants decide not to be in the mix for Dan Uggla. It's going to be the right move for the Giants. They really need that power bat in their pinch hitting role. They really need someone to really come up and step up. You can't just rely on the average. You gotta get some power to, you know, your bench. So I think Dan Uggla will be an excellent choice there. Other options that could be up there. I was gonna say the Pittsburgh Pirates, but it's very tough. I could see teams possibly. I wouldn't say, you know, the Colorado Rockies could be a possibility. The Oakland Athletics could be a possibility. You know, maybe even the Kansas City Royals. You know, that can be a good possibility. And also, you can really look at the New York Yankees there. They were originally interested in bringing in Dan Uggla at one point, but everything just fell through as he went on to go play for the Atlanta Braves. So there's just so many options for Dan Uggla to go for bench roles. Starting second baseman roles, it's going to be very tough for him. He can actually start, you know, seeing some playing time at second base, you know, after Brian Roberts is done, or if Brian Roberts needs a day off, the Yankees could be a possibility for him. So there's just so many opportunities for Dan Uggla floating around. Hopefully that he can contribute in a big way, possibly to the San Francisco Giants. That is where I see him as the most likely of options for him to go, because he's going to get, you know, such a big role in the National League and play a big part for the San Francisco Giants. Hopefully that he could end up possibly going there, having my prediction be at 100% there. So let me hear your guys' opinion about that. Where do you think Dan Uggla will go? He has been released by the Atlanta Braves. I'm Justin Godsey for the Justin Godsey Podcast, and I'll catch you guys in my next video.